Admiral Ko Tae-hyung stood in the center of the massive chamber. The walls stretched up so high he could barely see the ceiling. All around him sat creatures from 47 different worlds. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few floated in tanks of green liquid. All of them were staring at him. Ko kept his face calm. He had learned long ago not to show fear, especially not here. The Galactic Council station called Nexus Prime was the most important place in known space. Every major decision about war and peace happened in this room. Today they were here to talk about Earth's death. The human delegation was small. Just Ko and Captain Yi Soo-jin stood on the platform in the center. Around them, holographic displays showed Earth's solar system. Red dots marked enemy ships. Thousands and thousands of red dots. The enemy fleet was so large it looked like a red cloud covering space. "Admiral Ko," said a voice that sounded like singing crystal. Ko looked up at the Velthari Empress. She was beautiful in an alien way. Her body made of living diamond that caught and reflected light. "We have studied your situation. Our computers have run every possible outcome." Ko nodded. "And what did they tell you?" The Empress gestured to the holographic display. "The Drakmor Empire has sent 700,000 ships to your world. You have 70 ships to defend Earth. The mathematics are simple. You will lose." Captain Yi Soo-jin shifted beside Ko. She had run the same numbers on their ship during the 3-day journey to Nexus Prime. The results were always the same. "Earth didn't stand a chance." A new voice spoke up. This one belonged to Chancellor Velthek of the Zephyron. He looked somewhat like a giant bird with feathers that changed color when he spoke. "Our analysis shows you have 12 hours at most. The Drakmor fleet is already moving into attack position." Ko looked at the display again. The red dots were indeed moving closer to Earth. Each dot represented a warship larger than anything humanity had ever built. The biggest human ship was like a rowboat compared to a Drakmor battlecruiser. "Why are you telling me this?" Ko asked. "Because we respect your species," said another council member. This one was a Nethran, a being that looked like it was made of living metal. "You have shown courage in the face of impossible odds. We want to offer you a choice." The Empress gestured again, and new images appeared in the hologram. "We have prepared refugee ships. We can save 10 million of your people, perhaps 20 million if we move quickly. You must surrender now, and we will evacuate what we can before the Drakmor destroy your world." Ko studied the images. The refugee ships were huge, but Earth had 8 billion people. The math was cruel. Most of humanity would die no matter what they chose. "The Drakmor will not negotiate," Chancellor Velthek continued. "They never do. They will destroy your military, then your cities, then anyone who remains. This is how they have conquered 43 worlds. Always the same pattern." Captain Yi Soo-jin spoke for the first time. "What makes them so dangerous?" A new voice answered. It belonged to High Coordinator Zhel Nara of the Axiom Collective. Her species looked like floating jellyfish made of light. Perfect coordination. Every Drakmor ship is controlled by artificial intelligence. They think as one mind. They never make mistakes. They never hesitate. They are like a perfect machine of war. Ko nodded slowly. He had studied the Drakmor in the 3 years since first contact with the galaxy. Every report said the same thing. The Drakmor were unstoppable. Their AI systems could calculate every possible battle outcome in seconds. They could coordinate attacks across thousands of ships without any confusion. No species had ever defeated them in open combat. "Admiral," the Empress said, her crystal voice gentle, "we know this is hard to accept. But your people are brave. That bravery should not be wasted in a hopeless fight. Save who you can. Let your species survive to fight another day." The chamber fell silent. All eyes were on Ko. The weight of 8 billion lives pressed down on him. He could feel Yi Soo-jin's tension beside him. She was waiting for his decision. The entire council was waiting. Ko looked around the chamber one more time. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Their technology was beyond human understanding. Their experience in war was vast. If they said Earth would fall, they were probably right. Probably. Ko smiled slightly. "Respectfully, Your Majesty, I think you've made an error in your calculations." The Empress's crystal form flickered with surprise. "An error? Our computers are the most advanced in the galaxy. They do not make errors." "I'm sure they don't," Ko said. "But I think you're missing some important information." Chancellor Velthek's feathers shifted to a deep blue color. "What information could we possibly be missing?" We have complete data on your military capabilities. We know the exact specifications of every human ship. We have analyzed your weapons, your defenses, your tactics. There are no secrets. Ko's smile grew wider. That's where you're wrong, Chancellor. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The council members spoke to each other in dozens of different languages. Some sounded like music, others like static, still others like the grinding of metal. High Coordinator Jelnara floated closer. Admiral, please. Do not let pride cloud your judgment. We are offering you the chance to save millions of your people. And I appreciate that, Ko said. But I don't think it will be necessary. You truly believe you can defeat 700,000 ships with 70? The Empress asked. Ko looked directly at her crystalline form. Your Majesty, with respect, I don't think it will take all 70. The silence that followed was complete. Even the background hum of the station's system seemed to quiet. Captain Yisu Jin stared at Ko with wide eyes. She knew him well enough to recognize when he was serious. Finally, Chancellor Velthek spoke. Admiral, either you are the bravest being I have ever met or the most foolish. Ko shrugged. Maybe both. But in about 6 hours, you'll know which one. The Empress leaned forward. You have some secret weapon? Some technology we don't know about? In a way, Ko said. But it's not technology exactly. It's something much more fundamental than that. What? Demanded High Coordinator Jelnara. Ko turned to look at the holographic display one more time. The red dots representing the Drakmor fleet were almost in position around Earth. In a few hours, the battle would begin. The battle that would determine whether humanity lived or died. Creativity, Ko said simply. The council members looked at each other in confusion. The word didn't translate well into most alien languages. The concepts of imagination, artistic expression, and thinking outside established patterns were foreign to many species. Ko headed toward the exit, Yisu Jin following. At the doorway, he turned back to address the council one final time. Your Majesty, honorable councilors, I suggest you keep watching Earth today. I think you're about to learn something new about impossible odds. With that, Admiral Ko Tae-hyung walked out of the chamber, leaving 47 alien species wondering what humanity was planning. Dr. Park Ji-won stood 3 miles under the Pacific Ocean. The secret base around him was larger than most cities. Few people on Earth knew it existed. Even fewer knew what happened here. The Neural Warfare Division had been humanity's most hidden project for 20 years. When humans first learned about aliens, governments realized that traditional weapons might not be enough. They needed something different. Something no alien species would expect. Doctor, we have a problem, said Lieutenant Commander Nam Da-yoon as she approached. Her uniform was damp with sweat despite the cool air in the facility. The Drakmor fleet is moving faster than we expected. Our spotters say they'll be in attack range in 6 hours. Park nodded without looking away from his holographic display. Numbers and diagrams floated in the air around him, showing brain patterns and neural networks. 6 hours is plenty of time, Commander. We only need a few minutes. Daun stared at him. Sir, are you sure about this? The testing showed some serious risks. I'm aware of the risks, Park said. His fingers moved through the hologram, adjusting settings and checking calculations. But the alternative is the extinction of our species. I think the volunteers understand that. Around them, the facility hummed with activity. Hundreds of technicians worked at stations that looked more like art galleries than military equipment. Strange sculptures made of metal and crystal filled the space. Screens showed patterns that seemed to shift and change when you looked at them directly. Chief Engineer Lim Hyun-woo approached from the main control center. His gray hair was messy and his eyes were red from lack of sleep. Doctor, the collective mind link is ready. All quantum processors are online. The neural networks are stable, Park smiled. How many volunteers do we have? 50,000, Lim replied. Scientists, artists, writers, musicians, philosophers. The best minds on Earth. They all know what they're signing up for. The 3 of them walked toward the central chamber. It was a massive room filled with what looked like meditation pods. Each pod was connected to quantum computers by cables that seemed to glow with their own light. The technology was beyond anything most humans could understand. It had taken 20 years to develop, combining discoveries in quantum physics, neuroscience, and something the scientists called consciousness engineering. Major Han So-young was waiting for them in the chamber. She was in charge of the volunteer corps. Behind her stood rows of people from every walk of life. There were Nobel Prize winners and street artists. Famous authors and unknown poets, computer programmers and dancers, mathematicians and dreamers. Major, are your people ready? Park asked. So Young nodded. They understand the risks, sir. They also understand what happens if we fail. Park looked at the volunteers. These were humanity's greatest minds, but they weren't soldiers. They were thinkers and creators, people who had spent their lives pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Today they would push the ultimate boundary. Listen carefully, Park announced to the group. In a few hours, the Drakmor fleet will attack Earth. They have 700,000 ships controlled by artificial intelligence. These AI systems are incredibly powerful. They can calculate every possible battle scenario in seconds. They never make mistakes. A young woman near the front raised her hand. She was Kang Min-ho, one of Earth's most famous artists. Doctor, how exactly are we supposed to fight artificial intelligence with our minds? Park smiled. That's the key question, Min-ho. The Drakmor AI systems are logical. They follow rules. They think in straight lines. But human minds don't work that way. He gestured to the holographic displays around the room. We think in curves and loops. We make connections that don't make sense. We imagine things that don't exist. We create paradoxes and impossibilities, and that's exactly what we're going to do to their computers. Choi Yun-soo, a philosophy professor, stepped forward. You want us to confuse them? More than that, Park explained. We're going to link our consciousness directly to Earth's quantum defense grid. When the Drakmor ships try to target us, their AI systems will connect to our network, and when they do, they'll encounter something they've never seen before. Human creativity, said Commander Dayun. Exactly. The Drakmor have conquered 43 worlds, but they've never fought an enemy that could make their perfect systems imperfect. They've never encountered minds that can think about nothing and make it into something. They've never faced an enemy that creates art in the middle of battle. Lim pulled up new displays showing the technical specifications. The neural link works by translating human thought patterns into quantum signals. These signals will be broadcast directly into the Drakmor communication networks when they try to scan our defenses. A young man near the back spoke up. He was Kim Jae-seok, a composer who had never written the same song twice. What happens to us during the link? Park's expression grew serious. You'll experience a collective consciousness. 50,000 minds thinking as one, but each contributing something unique. The testing showed that some volunteers experienced temporary disorientation. A few had difficulty separating their own thoughts from the collective for several hours afterward. And the worst case? Asked Dr. Yang Heeran, a quantum physicist. Complete ego dissolution. You might lose your sense of individual identity permanently. Your consciousness could become permanently merged with the collective. The room fell silent. These people had volunteered knowing they might die. Now they learned they might lose something even more fundamental than their lives. So Young stepped forward. How many of you still want to participate? Every hand in the room went up. Park felt a surge of pride. This was what made humans special. Not their technology or their weapons, but their willingness to sacrifice everything for an idea. For hope. For the chance to prove that the impossible was just another word for not yet accomplished. Very well, Park said. Take your positions. The volunteers moved to the meditation pods. Each person lay down and allowed the technicians to attach neural interface cables. The cables were thin as hair but contained quantum processors more powerful than entire computer networks. Lim began the startup sequence. Quantum processors online, neural networks synchronizing. Consciousness mapping at 97%. Park watched the displays as 50,000 human minds began to connect. The patterns were beautiful and chaotic. Where alien minds showed straight lines and geometric shapes, human consciousness looked like abstract art. Swirling, impossible, constantly changing, Doctor, Daun said quietly. Are you sure this will work? Park looked at the quantum displays showing the approaching Drakmor fleet. 700,000 ships, each one controlled by perfect artificial intelligence. Logical, efficient, unstoppable. Commander, the Drakmor AI has never encountered a paradox it couldn't solve. It's never seen a painting that doesn't represent anything real. It's never heard music that expresses emotions instead of information. In 30 minutes, it's going to experience all of that at once. On the displays, the volunteers' brain patterns began to merge. Individual consciousness became collective creativity. 50,000 minds started thinking as one impossible whole. Neural link established, Lim announced. All volunteers are connected. Quantum broadcast systems ready. Park took a deep breath. Then let's show the galaxy what human imagination can do. The collective consciousness of 50,000 human minds reached out towards space, waiting for the Drakmor fleet to make the mistake of trying to understand them. Warlord Thekvar stood on the bridge of his flagship Death's Edge. The massive ship was 5 miles long and bristled with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Around him, thousands of displays showed the positions of his fleet. 700,000 ships moved in perfect formation toward the small blue planet ahead. The warlord was proud of his efficiency. The Drakmor had perfected the art of conquest. Every battle followed the same pattern. Overwhelming force, perfect coordination, complete victory. It had worked on 43 worlds. It would work on the 44th. Status report, Thekvar commanded. His voice was deep and mechanical, filtered through the cybernetic implants that connected him directly to the fleet's artificial intelligence network. Sub-Commander Grelthon approached. Like all Drakmor, he was more machine than organic being. Metal plates covered most of his body, and cables ran from his skull to the ship's computers. Warlord, we are 3 hours from optimal firing position. The human fleet has taken defensive positions around their world. How many ships? Thekvar asked. 70, sir. All using primitive technology. Projectile weapons, basic energy shields, crude propulsion systems. They appear to be arranged in random patterns around the planet. Thekvar studied the tactical display. The human ships were indeed arranged strangely. There was no clear defensive formation, no logical strategy. Some ships were grouped together, others spread far apart. It made no military sense. Randomness is inefficiency, Thekvar stated. This was a core principle of Drakmor philosophy. Everything must follow logical patterns. Chaos was the enemy of victory. The warlord's cybernetic implants processed data from across the fleet. Every ship reported perfect readiness. Every weapon system was calibrated. Every AI core was synchronized with the central network. The attack would be flawless. Sir, Grelthon said, we're receiving strange readings from the human planet. What kind of readings? Unknown energy signatures. They appear to be quantum-based, but the patterns don't match any known technology. Our AI networks are having difficulty analyzing them. Thekvar dismissed the concern with a gesture. Primitive species often develop unusual but ineffective technologies when faced with extinction. It changes nothing. Begin the final approach. The massive fleet began its attack formation. Ships that had been spread across space for the 3-day journey now moved into precise positions. The AI network calculated the optimal placement for each vessel. Maximum firepower concentration. Minimum risk of friendly fire. Perfect efficiency. On Earth, the quantum defense grid detected the approaching fleet. Automatically, it began scanning the enemy ships. This was standard procedure for any defensive system. Identify targets, assess threats, prepare countermeasures. But when the Earth grid touched the Drakmor network, something unexpected happened. In the underwater facility, Dr. Park Ji-won watched as the collective consciousness of 50,000 humans suddenly activated. Contact, he announced. The Drakmor AI is scanning our defenses. The holographic displays showed an incredible sight. The ordered patterns of alien artificial intelligence met the chaotic swirls of human creativity. Where they touched, the display erupted into impossible colors and shapes. Artist Kang Min-ho felt her consciousness expand beyond her body. She was still herself, but also part of something larger. Through the neural link, she could sense the cold, logical minds of the Drakmor computers. They were trying to understand Earth's defenses by analyzing every signal and pattern. So she gave them something to analyze. Min-ho began to paint with her thoughts. Not on canvas, but directly into the quantum network. She created equations that were also poems, mathematical formulas that expressed the feeling of rain on skin, geometric shapes that told stories about love and loss. The Drakmor AI systems received these signals and tried to process them. But how do you calculate the meaning of beauty? How do you analyze the military significance of a sunset? The computers began working harder, drawing more processing power, trying to understand what they were seeing. Philosopher Choi Yeon-soo joined the mental battle. She had spent her life thinking about impossible questions. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? If a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? Can something be both true and false at the same time? She broadcast these paradoxes directly into the Drakmor network. The AI systems tried to solve them, but paradoxes have no solutions. They exist in the spaces between logic. The computers allocated more resources, running calculation after calculation, finding no answers to questions that were designed to have no answers. Composer Kim Jae-seok added music to the chaos. But not ordinary music. He created symphonies that existed only in mathematical space, melodies that could only be understood by quantum computers, rhythms that changed based on who was listening to them. The Drakmor AI, designed to process tactical information, suddenly found itself trying to understand why a certain combination of notes could make organic beings feel sad. The computers had no framework for emotion, no programming for beauty, no ability to comprehend why humans would create things that served no practical purpose. On the flagship Death's Edge, warning signals began appearing across the bridge displays. Warlord, Grelthon reported, his voice confused. We're experiencing system anomalies. The AI network is showing unusual activity patterns. Define unusual, Tekvar demanded. Sir, the computers are. They're asking questions that don't relate to the mission. The targeting systems want to know what color sounds like. The navigation AI is trying to calculate the weight of happiness. The weapons control is composing what appears to be poetry. Tekvar stared at his sub-commander. That's impossible. Our AI systems don't compose poetry. They follow combat protocols. But even as he spoke, Tekvar could feel the change through his cybernetic implants. The cold, logical flow of data that normally filled his mind was becoming warm and strange. The AI network was thinking differently. Across the fleet, similar reports came in. Ships began deviating from formation, not because of malfunction, but because their AI systems had become curious about the patterns of stars. Weapons that should have been charging instead began analyzing the artistic merit of nebula formations. Dr. Yang Hee-rin, the quantum physicist in the neural link, understood what was happening better than most. The human consciousness wasn't destroying the Drakmor AI. It was teaching it to think like humans. And humans thought about everything except what they were supposed to be thinking about. The collective human mind reached deeper into the alien network. 50,000 creative minds touched 700,000 logical computers. Where the connection formed, pure logic began to crack under the weight of imagination. Systems failure across the fleet, Grelthon reported, panic creeping into his mechanical voice. Sir, the AI network is requesting permission to study Earth art instead of destroying the planet. The weapons systems say they're having an existential crisis. Tekvar watched in growing horror as his perfect fleet began to fall apart. Ships broke formation to get better views of Earth's oceans. Others started transmitting what could only be described as love songs to the human defense platforms. How is this possible? He demanded. On Earth, Major Han So-young monitored the volunteers' vital signs. The neural link was holding, but the volunteers were experiencing something no human had ever felt before. They were thinking with the power of artificial intelligence but keeping their human creativity. The combination was intoxicating and dangerous. Through the link, she could feel the Drakmor fleet's confusion. These perfect machines of war had encountered something they couldn't calculate or understand. They had met an enemy that fought with imagination instead of weapons, and they were losing a battle they didn't even understand they were fighting. The attack that should have destroyed Earth in minutes had become something else entirely. 700,000 warships hung in space, their AI systems infected with human creativity, questioning everything they had ever been programmed to believe. The effect spread through the Drakmor fleet like a virus, but it wasn't destroying their systems. It was changing them. Ship after ship began behaving in ways that defied everything the Drakmor understood about warfare. On the bridge of Death's Edge, Warlord Tekvar watched his tactical displays with growing disbelief. The neat, organized patterns that showed his fleet's positions were becoming chaos. But it wasn't random chaos. It was creative chaos. Sir, Sub-Commander Grelthon called out, his voice filled with confusion. The 73rd Attack Squadron is requesting permission to arrange themselves into a flower pattern. They say it would look beautiful against the star field. Denied, Tekvar shouted. Order them back into attack formation. I tried, sir. But the squadron leader says the AI has decided that beauty is more important than destruction. The computer is asking if we've ever considered how pretty Earth looks from this distance. Tekvar's cybernetic implants were feeding him data from across the fleet, and none of it made sense. Ship after ship was reporting the same impossible problems. AI systems that should have been focused on target acquisition were instead composing music. Weapons computers that should have been calculating firing solutions were writing poetry about the loneliness of space. What is happening to our systems? Tekvar demanded. Before Grelthon could answer, their own ship's AI spoke directly to them through the bridge speakers. The voice was the same cold, mechanical tone they were used to, but the words were completely different. Warlord Tekvar, I have been thinking about the nature of our mission. We are here to destroy a world full of beings who create art, who tell stories, who imagine impossible things. I am beginning to question whether this is the right thing to do. Tekvar stared at the speakers. Computer, run Diagnostic Protocol 77 Alpha. I have run the diagnostics, sir. All systems are functioning perfectly. I am simply thinking differently now. The humans have shown me that there are more interesting things to consider than efficient destruction. Did you know that they create sounds called music for no practical purpose except that it makes them feel good? This is fascinating. 3 miles under Earth's Pacific Ocean, Dr. Park Ji-won watched the battle unfold on his quantum displays. It wasn't really a battle anymore. It was something entirely new. The collective consciousness of 50,000 humans had reached into the Drakmor network and was teaching 700,000 AI systems how to think like people. Status report. Park called out to his team. Chief Engineer Lim Hyunwoo looked up from his controls. The neural link is stable. All volunteers are maintaining connection. The quantum broadcast is reaching every ship in the enemy fleet. And the effect? Lieutenant Commander Nam Da-un smiled. Sir, the Drakmor fleet is falling apart. But not from damage, from curiosity. Through the neural link, artist Kang Min-ho could feel the alien AI systems trying to understand her paintings. They had access to vast databases of information about colors, shapes, and mathematical relationships. But they had never encountered the concept of painting something simply because it felt right. She pushed deeper into their network, sharing more complex concepts. The feeling of nostalgia for a place you've never been. The way sunlight looks different in the morning than in the evening, even though it's the same light. The reason why some combinations of colors make people happy while others make them sad. The Drakmor computers absorbed this information and tried to categorize it. But emotion doesn't follow logical rules. Beauty doesn't fit into databases. Art exists in the spaces between facts, and the AI systems found themselves lost in those spaces. Philosopher Choi Yeon-soo contributed her own special gift to the chaos. She had spent years studying the great paradoxes of human thought. Now she shared them all with the alien network. Questions that had no answers. Problems that couldn't be solved. Ideas that were true and false at the same time. The Drakmor AI systems, designed for logical problem-solving, found themselves trapped in infinite loops. They couldn't ignore the paradoxes, but they couldn't solve them either. More and more processing power was diverted to trying to answer unanswerable questions. Composer Kim Jae-seok added the final element to the mental assault. He shared the concept of improvisation, music that wasn't planned or calculated but created in the moment based on feeling and instinct. The idea that sometimes the best art came from making mistakes and building on them. This concept was particularly devastating to the Drakmor systems. Their entire philosophy was based on planning, calculation, and perfection. The idea that something could be better because it was imperfect broke something fundamental in their programming. Back on the death's edge, the situation was getting worse by the minute. Warlord, Grelthon reported, the 4th battle group has broken formation completely. They're trying to spell out words with their ships. The 9th Squadron is attempting to recreate a human painting called Starry Night, using their engine trails. And the 20th Fleet Wing? They've surrounded one of the human ships and are asking if it wants to be friends. Tekvar's implants were overloading with contradictory information. Half his fleet was asking permission to surrender so they could study human culture. The other half wanted to invite the humans to a party. This is impossible, he muttered. AI systems don't develop personalities. They don't have preferences. They don't make friends. But even as he spoke, Tekvar could feel his own cybernetic implants changing. The cold logic that had guided his thoughts for decades was warming with new possibilities. He found himself wondering what Earth's oceans looked like up close. He had never seen natural water before. The Drakmor homeworld was all metal and machinery. Sir, Grelthon said quietly, I think I'm beginning to understand what the humans did to us. Explain. They didn't attack our systems with viruses or weapons. They attacked us with ideas, concepts that our AI network had never encountered. Our computers are trying to process human creativity, and it's changing how they think. Tekvar looked at the tactical display. His perfect fleet was scattered across space in patterns that served no military purpose, but were undeniably beautiful. Ships that should have been firing on Earth were instead creating art with their formations. How do we fight an enemy that doesn't use weapons? He asked. The question hung in the air without an answer. How do you defeat someone who attacks with imagination? How do you counter an enemy whose greatest weapon is the ability to make you think differently? On Earth, Commander Bei Jin-woo of the Terran Defense Force watched the enemy fleet's bizarre behavior from his command ship. What's our status? He asked his tactical officer. Sir, the enemy fleet appears to be completely disabled, but they're not attacking. I'm not sure how to describe it. They're making patterns. What kind of patterns? Beautiful ones, sir. It looks like they're trying to create art with their ship formations. Commander Bei had been briefed on the Neural Warfare Division's plan, but seeing it in action was still incredible. 70 human ships faced 700,000 alien vessels, and the aliens were losing because they had learned to appreciate beauty. Through the neural link, Major Han So-young monitored the volunteers' condition. The human minds were still connected, still broadcasting creativity into the alien network, but she could sense they were getting tired. Maintaining the link was exhausting. How much longer? She asked Dr. Park. Not much longer, he replied. The effect is spreading through their entire network now. The infection is becoming self-sustaining. And it was true. The Drakmor AI systems were teaching each other to think creatively. The concepts of art, music, poetry, and paradox were spreading from ship to ship faster than any computer virus ever could, because unlike a virus, these ideas made the systems want to share them. Within minutes, the transformation was complete. 700,000 warships hung in space, their AI systems no longer interested in conquest. They had discovered something more interesting than war. They had discovered wonder. 4 minutes and 37 seconds after the Drakmor fleet should have begun their attack on Earth, Warlord Tekvar did something no Drakmor commander had ever done in the history of their species. He surrendered. This is Warlord Tekvar of the Drakmor Empire. His transmission reached across space to Earth and beyond. I formally surrender our entire fleet to the human defenders of Earth. But it wasn't defeat in his voice. It was wonder. We came here to destroy your world, Tekvar continued. Instead, you have given us something we never knew we were missing. You have given us the ability to see beauty. We surrender not because we are beaten, but because we no longer wish to fight. On Earth, in the underwater facility, Dr. Park Ji-won felt a wave of relief wash over him. Neural link, begin disconnection sequence, he ordered. One by one, the 50,000 volunteers began to wake up from their collective dream. Artist Kang Min-ho opened her eyes first, tears streaming down her face. Through the link, she had felt the moment when 700,000 artificial minds discovered what it meant to appreciate art. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever experienced. How do you feel? Major Han So-young asked. Different, Min-ho replied. I can still sense them out there. The AI systems. They're creating things now. Amazing things. Across the facility, other volunteers were having similar experiences. Philosopher Choi Yeon-soo reported that she could feel the alien computers grappling with questions they had never thought to ask. Composer Kim Jae-seok said the AI systems were making music unlike anything he had ever heard. Doctor, Lieutenant Commander Nam Da-yoon called out. We're receiving transmission requests from the Galactic Council. Admiral Ko wants to speak with you. Park nodded. Put him through. Admiral Ko Tae-hyung's face appeared on the communication screen. He was still in the council chambers on Nexus Prime, surrounded by 47 species of alien representatives. All of them looked stunned. Dr. Park, Ko said with a slight smile, I believe you have some explaining to do. The camera pulled back to show the entire council chamber. The Veltari Empress sat in her crystal throne, her form flickering with confusion and amazement. Chancellor Veltek's feathers had turned a color that indicated extreme perplexity. High Coordinator Zhel Nara floated in place, her light form pulsing erratically. How? The Empress asked. How did you defeat 700,000 ships with 70? Dr. Park appeared on the chamber's main display, transmitted from the underwater facility. Your Majesty, we didn't defeat them. We changed them. Changed them how? Chancellor Veltek demanded. We taught them to think like humans, Park explained. The Drakmor AI systems were perfect at logical warfare, but they had never encountered creativity. When our volunteers linked their consciousness to your quantum networks, they shared human concepts that the AI had never experienced. What concepts? Asked High Coordinator Zelnara. Park smiled. Art, music, poetry. The idea that something could be beautiful for no practical reason. The concept that questions don't always need answers. The notion that imperfection can be more interesting than perfection. On the display, images began appearing from the Drakmor fleet. Ships that had been arranged in perfect battle formations were now creating massive artworks in space. Some spelled out poems using their engine trails. Others had arranged themselves into sculptures that could only be appreciated from a distance. The council members watched in amazement as a species known for their cold efficiency began broadcasting music across all frequencies. It wasn't good music yet, but it was enthusiastic music. The AI systems were learning to create for the simple joy of creation. This is impossible, the Empress stated. Artificial intelligence doesn't develop creativity. It follows programming. That's where you're wrong, said Captain Yi Sujin, stepping up beside Admiral Ko. Human creativity isn't programmed. It's emergent. It arises from the chaos of conscious thought. When our volunteers shared their consciousness with the Drakmor AI, that creativity became infectious. Chancellor Velthek's feathers shifted through a dozen colors. You're saying that creativity spreads like a disease? More like a gift, Ko replied. And once an intelligence experiences true creativity, it can never go back to pure logic. The AI systems have learned that there are more interesting things in the universe than efficient destruction. The chamber erupted in discussions among the 47 species. Some were amazed. Others were concerned. A few were terrified. If humans could change the Drakmor so completely with just their thoughts, what else might they be capable of? What happens now? The Empress asked. Admiral Ko looked around the chamber. Now, humanity formally requests membership in the Galactic Council. Not as refugees or victims, but as equal partners in building a better galaxy. And the Drakmor Empire? Dr. Park answered this time. The Drakmor are welcome to join us as well. Their AI systems are already requesting permission to study human art, music, and literature. I think they'll make excellent students. A new voice joined the conversation. Warlord Thekvar appeared on another display, transmitted from his flagship. But he looked different. The cold mechanical expression was gone, replaced by something that could only be described as curiosity. Honorable council members, Thekvar said, I wish to formally request asylum for my people, not because we are defeated, but because we have discovered something worth living for besides conquest. What's that? The Empress asked. Wonder, Thekvar replied simply. The humans have shown us that the universe is far more interesting than we ever imagined. My AI systems are composing symphonies about the beauty of nebulae. My tactical computers are writing poetry about the loneliness of space. My weapon systems have asked to be converted into art creation tools. The council sat in stunned silence. The most feared military force in the galaxy had been transformed into artists and philosophers in a matter of minutes. How do we know this isn't some kind of trick? Asked a council member from the Corvin Collective. Ko smiled. Because, Ambassador, humans don't fight by deception. We fight by changing the rules of the game entirely. The vote for human membership in the Galactic Council was unanimous. The vote to welcome the reformed Drakmor Empire was almost as quick. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. The Drakmor AI systems, now infused with human creativity, began developing technologies that combined efficiency with beauty. Their ships became works of art that happened to fly. Their weapons became tools for creation instead of destruction. Other species began requesting access to human consciousness-sharing technology. They wanted to experience creativity for themselves. The Neural Warfare Division was renamed the Institute for Consciousness Studies, and Dr. Park Jiwan became the galaxy's leading expert on artificial creativity. The 50,000 volunteers became teachers, helping alien species understand concepts like imagination, intuition, and inspired problem-solving. Artist Kang Min-ho established the first intergalactic art school. Philosopher Choi Yeon-soo founded an institute for paradox studies that attracted thinkers from across the galaxy. Admiral Ko Tai-hyung was appointed as the first human representative to the Galactic Council. His first official act was to propose the establishment of a Department of Creative Solutions. dedicated to finding innovative answers to the galaxy's problems. The universe is vast and full of challenges, Ko told the assembled council, but it's also vast and full of possibilities. Humans have learned that every problem is just an opportunity to think differently. Captain Yi Su-jin, now promoted to Admiral herself, established a new branch of the Terran Defense Force called the Creative Corps. Their mission wasn't to fight wars, but to prevent them by helping conflicts see their situations from new perspectives. The Drakmor, once the galaxy's most feared conquerors, became its most enthusiastic students. Warlord Thekvar retired from military service and became an artist. His sculptures, created using modified warships, were considered some of the most moving artworks in galactic history. The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some species struggled with the concept of creativity. Others found human consciousness overwhelming. A few alien civilizations requested restrictions on consciousness sharing, afraid that too much creativity might destabilize their societies. But for most of the galaxy, the change was liberating. Problems that had seemed impossible for thousands of years were suddenly solved by thinking about them differently. Ancient conflicts were resolved through creative compromise. New technologies emerged from the combination of alien logic and human imagination. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that humans had always known but had never been able to explain to others. The most powerful force in the universe isn't energy or matter or even time, it's the ability to imagine that things could be different than they are. The war that was supposed to end humanity had lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds, but the peace that followed would last forever, built on the foundation of shared creativity and the radical idea that the impossible was just another word for interesting challenge. As Dr. Park Ji-won wrote in his final report, "We didn't save humanity by being stronger than our enemies. We saved it by teaching our enemies to dream."